Yeah, hi everyone, and welcome to my podcast. Never thought that that would be a statement that I'm saying, but lo and behold, here we are. Um, yeah, so this is called the Aftermath Podcast, and in this podcast, I'm going to be sharing some details about the work that I do. If you know me, you'll know that this March, the March of this year, I started my own business doing crime and trauma scene cleaning, hoarding cleaning, biohazard remediation, and I serve pretty much all areas of Eastern Ontario. In the first few months of my business, I have received quite a few calls. I didn't really realize the demand would be as high as it is. I am very grateful that things have taken off how they have. And I'm super grateful for the way that things have already kind of taken off with my business. Even though I'm not the crazy busiest with my new business, I do have a lot of stories to tell so far. And that's what I want to do on this podcast. I want to tell the stories of situations I'm in to raise awareness about mental health, but also to give myself a personal outlet. And I know you're probably thinking maybe I should just go talk to a therapist, but it's not really about that. The situations that I'm in can be emotionally charged. And it's not that I need to talk about them to make myself feel better. It's that I feel like people need to be more aware about the work that I do and how necessary it is. I'll tell you a little bit about why I started my business. I'd be lying to tell you I didn't get into it for the money, because that was a big reason why I wanted to get into it. But I also saw a very unique niche in this industry and being able to help people. I started off in my career as a house cleaner and commercial cleaner. I had my own business doing that for about 2 years. And as much as I really liked that, it started to get pretty boring and repetitive and mundane. And of course, when you are a solo cleaner, there's only so much money you can make. You can only be in so many places at once. You can only clean so many houses a day. And so that's kind of where I came across crime scene cleaning, and I saw all the work that you can do and the impact you can make in people's lives. And I thought, this is something that I could be really good at because I love to help people, but also it's incredibly lucrative. So just hearing the lady in the States that I took the courses from, she's the CEO of Decomp, just listening to her talk about it and how, when she started in law enforcement and she was living paycheck to paycheck. And then all of a sudden she just, she found that there was a really big need for this kind of service because she was at the scene of a double homicide, I believe it was. And one of the family members at the scene said, "So when are you guys coming back to clean this up?" And she kind of thought, like, what? Like, we don't do that. And then that's when she saw that there was a real need for that. And so one of the things she said that was very challenging for her to start was that awareness. People don't understand that you need these kind of businesses and need these kind of services until you're in a situation where you need them. And that's it's unfortunate, and I think that that's still pretty prevalent today. Death is a very taboo topic. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it is a part of life, and none of us are getting out of this alive. We're all going to die, and that's just the harsh reality of it. I think that the more that we talk about it, the more normalized we can make it, and the less fear surrounding the topic there will be. So I think that that's a really important thing about this podcast too, is that, yeah, there are going to be some very messy situations in life, and it's important to know who to call and why it's important to call in situations like that. Yeah, so the situations that I deal with personally at my business, Emdecon, is so any kind of after death cleanup, whether that be homicides, suicides, unattended deaths. So by unattended deaths, I mean where someone has died in a home or property and wasn't found for a significant amount of time, whether that be from a few days to a few weeks. And so we're called in to clean up afterwards, because that's another thing that people don't realize is, okay, yeah, so you tell someone, yeah, so-and-so died in their home and they weren't found for a few days. Oh, wow, that's tough. Like, just more talking about the emotional impact of that and how they were alone for so long. But you also don't realize the physical impact of that, having a body decomposing for that amount of time. It gets very messy, and there are different circumstances that will make that worse, whether it's, there's no air conditioning, whether all the windows are closed. So many factors are at play when there's an unattended death. So yeah, I won't get into it too much, but this definitely hasn't been an easy business to start and hasn't been an easy business to run. This business isn't for the faint of heart. It's a very difficult job, and not in the sense that it's emotionally draining, because it's not. I haven't really found that is the hardest part of the job. The hardest part of the job is the physical manual labor that comes along with the work. So not only are you in situations that are emotionally charged and you have to be cautious about how you're talking to your clients and being sensitive to the situation and understanding that this is the worst day of your life that you are there witnessing and you are a part of. So not only is there that aspect of it, there's also the physical aspect. You're head to toe in PPE, in a coverall suit, and working hard, like cleaning jobs, as hard as it is, but once you're head to toe in PPE, it gets very difficult. Not to mention that it's not just cleaning that we do, it's a lot of demolition work in situations where someone's died and hasn't been found. Everything seeps out of the body, all bodily fluid, blood, everything, and as it decomposes, everything liquefies, so whatever surface someone passes on is going to be very heavily impacted by the blood and bodily fluid. Whether you're ripping up carpet or hardwood, cutting into drywall, cutting into subfloor, in a lot of situations, depending on the material. So the first story that I have for you guys today is actually about an unattended death. I've gotten permission from the family to use photos. I'm still not going to use any identifying details about them. I'm never going to share names about my clients. And I'm always going to talk about these situations with the utmost respect and empathy, and also talk about a focus on what we can learn from each situation, because I think that that's very important. So listener discretion is definitely advised. If you are sensitive to listening to trauma-related topics, I would definitely not recommend this podcast for you if that is going to be difficult for you. I had started my business back in March of this year, and I had had a few calls already, 2 unattended death calls. I had some deep cleaning jobs and some miscellaneous cleaning, nothing too crazy. And the first 2 unattended death jobs that I had, they weren't anything crazy. They were very easy cleanups compared to this one. That's the other thing too, is you never really know what you're going to be walking into, and this certainly was one of those cases that I didn't know what I was going to be walking into. I get the call, this is early June, and my ringer was off for whatever reason, and thankfully they left a voicemail message, and in the voicemail message the woman sounded young, probably, I don't know, a couple years older than me. So in the message that she left for me, she sounded a little bit distressed, and I had received a few calls already for this type of thing, so I kind of knew where it was heading. Obviously, you assume the worst when you get a call like that and someone's distressed over the phone. Like, this could be a suicide, this could be a homicide, this could be, anything. So I called her back and I asked her how she was, and she told me she could be better, but she explained that her mom had passed away in her home and wasn't found for about 3 weeks. She said no one has seen or heard from her since the beginning of May. So we're thinking that it's been that long since she passed away. Obviously, you have to be very sensitive when you get a call like this, because you don't want to pry and you don't want to make them talk about it more than, you know, they have to. So I just asked some details and about the property and whereabouts her mom lived. She said that her mother was also a hoarder. She said, so there will be a lot of garbage throughout the home, but she said there will be a path to get to the back where the incident happened. I asked her if she wanted me to go right away, and I asked her if there would be someone at the home to let me in. And she said that her and her sisters couldn't be there because 2 of them lived in a different province and another one in another country. So there was no immediate family there to let me into the home, which was also sad because you have these poor women that have just found out that their mom has passed away and there's nothing that they can physically do about it because they're so far away. So they're facilitating all of these phone calls and communicating with the police and the coroner and everything. And one of the other things she told me was that her mom was unidentifiable when the police found her. And if you're confused by what that means, it's because she had decomposed so much that all that would have been left of her would have been a little bit of skin and bones. So that's very sad too. And I can't imagine the weight of having to hear that from the police officer. I'm sure that there probably was a lot of guilt that the daughters were feeling in a situation like that. But I do encourage you not to judge, because the thing that I see in a lot of videos like this where, I mean, just following crime scene cleaning companies, and they talk about the situations where so-and-so wasn't found for a few weeks, and everyone in the comments, they're so quick to judge, and they say, well, where were their family? Why weren't they checking up on them? And the truth is, you don't know the whole situation. So I just, you know, it's so easy to make comments, but I think it does a lot more damage saying them out loud and having people, you know, have to read that and be judged in an already traumatic situation. I think those comments really should just be kept to yourself. I know it's hard for some people to understand that, but the truth is that not everybody has empathy and not everybody can understand why someone wouldn't check up on their mom. If you have a good relationship with your mom or your dad, then it's completely different for you. And if you can't put yourself into other people's shoes, then, I mean, I'm sorry, you're just probably not an empathetic person, and you can't teach empathy, unfortunately. So that's all I really have to say about that. But yeah, so I asked the client if she wanted me to go right away, and she said that that would be great. And she said that the coroner and the police officer are still there, so they should be able to let me in. But anyways, I drive an hour there and I show up and there's still a police cruiser out front. So I figured there was still something going on, but I didn't see any other commotion going on at the front of the house. So I just figured I should get out there and ask the police officer what was going on. And so I did. I approached her and I asked, I said, hello, officer, do you still need to investigate inside of the home? I got a call from the family. And she goes, what did you get a call for? And I said, I guess maybe I should have led with that. I got a call to clean up afterwards. And she said, okay, well, body removal hasn't come yet, so I have to stay here until they come and remove the body. And she said the standard protocol of situations like this is we would board up the door afterwards. So I said, okay, well, that's no problem. I'll just wait in my van and I'll contact the client and see what she wants me to do about that. And so anyways, got back in touch with the client, and she told me that the door had been broken for a long time due to how many wellness checks had been done on her mom for the past few years. So she said, when you leave, it's just going to be the same as, you know, you're just going to close the door and leave it unlocked. I said, okay, yeah, no problem. And she was able to facilitate with the police officer because she had been in contact with them, and she just made sure to tell them that I had consent to go in there, which was good. So I had to wait for, I don't know, probably about 25-30 minutes until I saw a black van arrive, where 2 gentlemen were in the black van, and as they were passing me, I could tell that one of them noticed the lettering on my van that said biohazard remediation, crime scene cleaning, And he looked at me and he kind of smirked, and I think he was just maybe laughing at the fact that I had beat them there. And I knew that that was possible. I knew that that is a common occurrence sometimes in situations like this, because of all the training I did and such. And sometimes, yeah, you will arrive at a scene before the coroner even gets there and before body removal even gets there. So, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You can't clean up anything until the body's gone. So you have to wait. And that was no problem. So watched the officer go into the home with the two gentlemen. They pulled a stretcher out of the back of their van. Then I think the police officer was more just going in there to show them where the body was. And she put a mask on when she went in, and she came back out and took her mask off. And obviously she's very professional about it. She doesn't want to make faces or anything like that, but I could tell, the face of disgust is kind of a hard face to hide. I've learned you can try your absolute best, but you can still tell when, I don't know, maybe I'm just good at reading people, I don't know, but I thought to myself, it's definitely stinky in there, because it's June and it's been warm out, and she wasn't found for 3 weeks or so. So I guess, it's gonna stink in there, definitely. So she gets back into her cruiser, waits for the gentleman to do their thing, and a part of me says to myself, okay, I'm not gonna look at the front door. I don't want to look at the entrance in case that I see something that I can't unsee. And I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, there's no way they're gonna bring a body or remains out that's not covered. But anyways, I also didn't want to be nosy and disrespectful to the family, even though the family wasn't there. But anyways, morbid curiosity got the best of me, and I kept my eyes locked on the front entrance. About 10 minutes later, the two gentlemen come out with the white tarp, which is the body bag, and it's taped at the head and the torso and the feet. And it's just very eye-opening, because obviously you see this stuff on movies all the time, and you see it maybe on the news sometimes, but I've never seen it live, like in live time before. So it was very interesting for sure. So the two gentlemen load up the remains into the van, and they shut the doors and take their gloves off and everything. And one of the gentlemen that was driving the van, he gave the thumbs up over to me and the police officer, because we were both parked on the street. And he looked over, he goes, "Have fun." And I think that was just, I don't know, maybe his cue to me that it was not very nice in there. It was pretty gnarly in there. And he wasn't wrong, or I wasn't wrong in assuming that that's what he meant. Anyways, thankfully I was able to shake his hand and meet him and give him some business cards, because I imagine that he's in situations like this a lot. So if he's ever in a situation like that, it would be great if, I could be the one that would be called to help clean up afterwards. So yeah, I thought that was really nice. Good little networking opportunity there. Yeah, so go up to the officer again. She said, "Okay, so you're good to go ahead in." She said the family's allowed you access, so I'm just going to double check with them again and see if they want me to board up the door. If not, I'm just going to head out. So I asked her, I said, "How's it looking in there?" And she said, "I've been here a lot over the past few years. So she's a hoarder and she smokes in the house, and there's lots of garbage everywhere. She has half-eaten food that's just sitting on plates, and like the kitchen cupboards or the kitchen counters are covered in stuff." And she said, "Yeah," she said, "there'll be maggots." And I knew that was, I said, "Yeah, I understand. That's a given in situations like this. That's just a part of the decomposition process. There's always going to be fly larvae." And so, yeah, she asked me, she said, "Are you here by yourself?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've been thinking about hiring, but for the first few months, it's just been me." So she said, "Oh, okay, well, it just seems like a lot of work for one person, but at least it's, contained to one area." And I was like, "Yeah," and I haven't seen it yet, so I'm just, kind of like I guess we'll see when we go in there. Anyways, pull my van into the driveway, walk up to the front door. The entrance is all overgrown with weeds, bushes, shrubs, stuff like that. And there's kind of like some broken stones in the front door, like the patio stones, some of them are broken. There's the mailbox is stuffed with mail and flyers, and there's another pile on the ground. You can tell already that this, this place has been neglected for quite some time. And as soon as you walk in, it's smelly in there. It smells like steel smoke, and then obviously a very faint smell of decomposition, because where it happened was at the back to the right. And this is a big home, like it's a 2,500 square foot home probably. And yeah, so it was pretty big. And I walk in, I'm like, yeah, this person was definitely a hoarder. And not to the point where like, honestly, it wasn't bad, but this was my first time in a hoard, period. Like, I had seen them all on, the videos and the training that I did and everything like that. And, on like TV, watching hoarders and stuff. So this was definitely not bad. It had been severely neglected. So I don't know, probably if I was rating it from a level 1 to 5, this was probably, I don't know, a 2 or 3, maybe more like a 3. Yeah, probably more like a 3. Like, it was bad, but I could still see floor, and there was a lot of garbage when I walked in. I noticed that there were some hospital gowns that were on the steps as soon as you walked in. So anyways, it was just kind of strange at first, and I looked to the right, and the bedroom is just stacked halfway to the ceiling with just miscellaneous objects. And it's very interesting in situations like this because, I mean, not all hoarders are like this, but a good amount of them will, despite how much stuff they have, they'll still carve out a path to wherever they're trying to go. So that was kind of interesting. But anyway, so keep walking through the hallway to get to the back of the house, and I walk in the kitchen, and you can't see much of the counter because of how much stuff is on top of it. It's not, it's not piled, but there's lots of dirty dishes, and it's very dirty, and the smell kind of just keeps getting worse and worse as you walk to the back of the house. And in the kitchen there was the back patio door, and I noticed it was wide open, and so I didn't know maybe if that was something that the body removal team did just because the smell was so bad, but I later found out that the door had been like that for a long time, like since she passed away. So walked to the back room where it happened, and the first thing that I noticed, well, first was the smell, but the sound you could not ignore, because it was hundreds of flies just tapping the window, buzzing and tapping the window. And I'll include a clip on this because I did get permission from the family to use it. But yeah, you can hear it in the video how loud it was, so you can imagine how loud it was in person. Like, the body had just been removed, and now there's all these flies that are still in the room, and larvae still on the couch, everything. And it was pretty obvious that this is where, this room was the worst of the house, and this was probably where she was spending most of her time before she passed away. I don't know the cause of death. I never asked that. I did see beside the couch where she passed away, there was probably like a 3-foot high pile of wine boxes, wine bags that were in the boxes, cigarette cartons, cigarette butts all over the floor, just a lot of garbage everywhere. And you could tell that there was definitely some severe mental health going on, and alcoholism in this house, and that was really sad to see that. Like, you just kind of stand there and you take it all in, and your mind starts to wander, and you're just, you can't always do that to yourself though, because you're there to do a job and you're there to clean it up. So, but it is, curiosity does get the best of you sometimes, and you do continue to ponder. So I noticed on the couch where she passed away, her phone was still there, and there was some dog fur and a dog collar, which I found was interesting because I didn't see any dog remains anywhere. I know that will happen sometimes if, the owner passes away, and if the dog the dog obviously needs a food source. So, I mean, we all know what happens in that situation. But yeah, I didn't see any dog remains. So I did end up asking the client after if there was a dog, and there was an upstairs in the house. So I thought, okay, should I be looking for dog remains? And she said, no, she said the dog is perfectly fine. The dog is with the neighbor now. And 3 weeks that the dog, because I didn't see any pee or poo or anything in the house. And I'm like, you'd think that if the dog, you know, was in here for that long. But then I remembered, okay, the patio door was open. So that's how the dog was able to go outside and do its business and everything. So I was, you know, I was happy to hear that the dog was okay, because I don't know, you just don't want to add more tragedy to the already very tragic situation. And anyways, I actually got to see the dog. Labradoodle kind of dog. It seemed very happy though, like, you know, it was sad also, because the neighbor had taken in the dog. And as we were working over there in the house and we were making noise and stuff like that, the dog started to bark. And that was really sad, because I think that the dog was probably thinking, oh, mom's home. Like, you know, I don't know. You try to wonder if dogs really understand that part. And I don't know. Anyways, that's sad. But by the time that, you know, I was looking at this job, I was looking at the couch and I'm thinking, this is a huge job. Like, this is absolutely huge. And by the time that I got there, and by the time that I could get a quote to the client, get her to sign the contract, get everything approved, it was 8:07 p.m. by the time that I got suited up and actually started to work. So yeah, so I went ahead and walked in there, put my respirator on so that I couldn't smell anything, and my hazmat suit, my boots, my gloves, everything. And I just started to slice up the couch with an X-Acto knife, and it was a dull X-Acto knife too, so I wasn't making a lot of progress. And it's tough when you're in, like I said, it's tough when you're in head-to-toe PPE and you're trying to do something that's like hard work, because is it already hard work, but you're also wearing a respirator, so your breathing is labored as well. So it just adds another layer of difficult to it. So anyways, I go at that for about 30 to 45 minutes, and it's just getting darker and darker in the house. And I'm trying to turn on the lights. Only half of them work. They're not very bright. It stinks in there. It's there's flies flying everywhere. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way I can do this alone. So, and the other thing too is, like, it's dark. I'm in this city that I don't know. The front door is broken, so I can't even lock myself in here to make myself feel safer. Anyone could come in at any point. And I'm alone. So I'm like, and this is a lot of work for one person, and given all the other circumstances, like, there's not a lot of room to move around in here because of all the garbage. And so, yeah, I had a little bit of a panic attack, and that was my first, like, really eye-opening experience that a lot of these jobs you can't do by yourself, and nor should you try. And that was a big learning experience for me, because obviously I was at the point in my business where I wasn't ready to hire yet. I had only had a few jobs so far, and then, you know, this big one fell into my lap, and I'm just thinking, like, yeah, maybe I should have hired to begin with. So thankfully, I was able to talk to my boyfriend, and he calmed me down, and he actually sent his dad to come help me, which was super helpful because he runs his own cleaning business. Him and his dad, they do more specialty work like tile and grout and carpet and like floor care more. They do janitorial work as well. But his dad used to work in asbestos abatement and restoration, mold remediation kind of thing. So he knew what to do in situations like that. So it was very helpful to have the extra hands, and we couldn't get everything done the first night. But that was fine because the family wasn't in province or in town anyway. So we had a pretty long time frame to be able to deal with it. So anyways, took us a good full day to get the demolition and the like the couch taken out. So yeah, the extent of the damage was actually pretty crazy. Like, the lady was on the couch, and it was a big leather couch with a metal frame. And that was so hard to dismantle because of the metal frame and just how big it was. And it was like a reclining couch as well. Like the two seats on the right and left, they both reclined. Of course, you know, because of the way that the frame is on the couch, all of the fluid traveled like pretty much right down to the floor underneath where the couch was sitting. And you're just looking at the panels of the hardwood, and the in between the cracks of all the panels, it's very dark. Like, you could tell that there had been body fluid that had seeped below that. You really have to do your due diligence in situations like this, because you don't want to leave a situation half-assed, for lack of a better word. You don't want to half-ass a job, because it's very important that these situations get remediated the best as possible. So start looking at the hardwood, and I'm like, yeah, that's gonna need to come up. So my boyfriend's dad starts cutting into the floor, passing me the panels, and I'm just looking at them, and they're covered in this slimy gooey liquid. And somehow baby maggots got in between those little teeny cracks of the paneling of the hardwood panels, which was crazy to me. But anyways, yeah, just like, it's crazy because as soon as we took the couch out, the smell had gotten a lot better in that room. So I was ready to take my respirator off. I was ready to just put an N95 mask on. But as soon as we cut into the floor and all that fluid got exposed again, I'm like, I need to put my mask back on. It's getting tough in here. And so I did. And as we got the hardwood up, it's like, okay, the subfloor is soaked as well. Like, actually soaked. And it's crazy that you think that, like, that so much fluid can travel in between little cracks of it up with paper towel, like the wooden floor. And so the damage didn't go a lot past the subfloor, thankfully. You'll find in a lot of situations that it will, especially if it's a bigger person that passed away. There's more fluid to, you know, come out of the body. Pull up the subfloor. Some of the joists were impacted a little bit, so we did treat those and seal them. We scrubbed them first with the strong chemical, and then like manipulate it with a wire brush. Do as best as you can, because you have to be careful with removing structural components like that. So yeah, we just we did the best we could, scrubbed it as best as we could, but obviously wood is porous, so there's only so much you can do. And then we sealed it with Kills. Was it Kills? Yeah, Kills. Like and this is like a part odor blocker, but also it encapsulates anything else that could be potentially left in there. And then where the fluid had pooled the most on the subfloor, it had dripped through the subfloor onto the ceiling of the basement. So we had to cut out, I don't know, 10-inch by 10-inch square of drywall. And then there was no damage beyond that. So that's kind of just to give you an idea of how much of a mess there can be when someone passes away. The other thing that's very important to know in situations like this is that insurance typically covers it. Homeowners insurance or property insurance. This job was a total of $15,000 plus HST. So obviously you want to make sure that you document everything properly. You take a picture before, during, and after to show all the work that's done, and the insurance company reimbursed the family the entire amount. So one thing that's really important to know, that if you're ever facing a situation like this, depending if you're the property owner or not, because if you're a tenant, like if you're renting, then it would be the landlord's responsibility to put it through insurance. But if it's if you're the property owner, it's good to know it's kind of like falls under disaster in your property insurance policy. So whether that's like fire, water, or like, you know, natural disaster, which this would be. Once we got that part done, my dad came to help me the next day and put a new subfloor on, because we can't just leave a hole in the floor. And it was so helpful to have his help, because that's one thing that, you know, starting this business, I knew that that's, you know, that's what the business was going to entail. And in all the courses that I did, yeah, you're going to have to replace the subfloor in certain situations. You're going to have to cut into material. So I knew that all of that was a possibility. It was just like, okay, this is here now. I haven't even had time to learn this, but here we are. And my dad came readily with all of his tools and everything and showed me exactly what to do. So it's kind of like a learning as you go situation. And I was really thankful to have his help, because he had been, well, he still is, him and my mom had been doing renovations on our houses growing up, and he still does that with his houses. And so he knew exactly what he was doing. We replaced the insulation that was underneath just in case it had been saturated with anything. I was super helpful to have his and my boyfriend's dad help, because I couldn't have done it alone. I really needed both of their help with this job. So definitely a learning experience that, you know, you can't always do things by yourself. And that's okay to admit that, you know, like at first I was like, nah, no, fine, I'll be fine. I can do this by myself. No, like just being very bullheaded about it. And then obviously you come across a situation like this and it's like, yeah, it's okay to ask for help. And now I've hired, so I will have a help and I know what to do now. It's just, you know, learning. Because the mother was a hoarder, there was still a lot of work to be done throughout the home. And the daughter that I had been communicating with to begin with knew that her sister was going to be arriving the week after to make arrangements with the funeral home and to go see the house and make sure everything, you know, just see how everything looked essentially. And it was a really emotional experience meeting the daughter when she arrived. Thankfully, at that point, I did go in and clean things and clean all the bathrooms, get rid of all the garbage, just so that it wasn't so much of a shock when she got there. And I think her sister really wanted to make sure that that was done beforehand, because she didn't want her to walk in to see the house like that. And that's very fair. And I thought that was really good of her sister to do that, just to, you know, to look out for her and realize that this is, you know, it's a sad and devastating situation. And to have this space look the way it was, it would have made it look, it would have been a much more difficult situation for her. So anyways, when I got to meet the daughter, it was a very emotional experience. She was crying when she arrived to the house, and she actually grew up at the house, so like her and her sisters. So I can't imagine how many memories would have been going through her mind when she arrived there. And she's just crying going through the house and thanked me for the work that I'd done. And it was really nice to be able to finally meet someone, because it was, everything was done through correspondence on the phone and everything. And this was the first time that I finally got to meet her. And it was nice that she could walk into a clean home, or a cleaner home anyways. I think I did a pretty good job of cleaning it up, but obviously it wasn't perfect. And yeah, so later on in July, that was when they could all coordinate each other being there together to start going through the belongings, figure out what they want to keep, what they want to donate, what they want to throw out. So they hired me back for that, and it was such a fun experience being with them doing that, because, you know, you got to see the initial part of it, the most devastating, you know, part of it. You're right in afterwards, and then you get to, you know, kind of walk with this family through, you know, an even more challenging and, you know, difficult situation, because the mother had so many things. The home had been in the family for decades, so there was so much stuff in that house. And it was a great experience to be able to work alongside with them. And I was really thankful for them. They were such a nice family to work with, and they always let me know how grateful they were for me and the work that we did. And I had some helpers come in and do some heavy lifting, but then I also did a lot of trips to Value Village or Salvation Army, whatever charity could take a van load of things. And a lot of it was really good stuff. Like the house wasn't impacted by rodents or roaches or bed bugs or anything like that. It was a very nice house, and it was really nice that a lot of things could be donated, and they donated a lot of things to women's shelter as well. So like brand new towels and like toiletries, brand new toiletries, lots of stuff like that. So it was really nice that the things didn't have to go to waste. I love that family a lot, and I will remember them for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. It was very emotional saying goodbye to them. They left me a very nice card, and yeah, the whole experience, I just that was, I don't know, maybe it will be my favorite job forever. I don't know. I don't know if you ever really get to run into experiences like that, but it was just so crazy that it was so early into my career, and I'm sure there will be a lot more experiences that I'll remember, but this family in particular, I just really, really love them. And all this to say is that it's so easy to say, well, I don't know how someone can live like that. And I think that all just comes down to having empathy for one another. And I think that's something that we can all learn. You never know what someone's going through. You truly never know. And it's so easy to judge, but you just, you think of what people are going through in their minds, and, they're just trying to get by. The last thing that they want to do is clean their house and go through everything and sort things out. Like, when you're already feeling like you don't want to be alive, the last thing on your list is, well, I got to clean out my house. I got to, throw things out. I got to put things in the garbage. Like, you're in survival mode at that point. Like, all they're trying to do is make it from one day to the next. And so it's really tough for me to hear people say things like, well, that's just disgusting. Like, how could someone live like that? Like, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. I can't understand. People can't understand how another person could live like that. I can't understand how people that say that can't put themselves into their shoes and understand how they feel like that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not explaining that properly, but it's crazy to me, the lack of empathy in this world. And, if you can take one thing from this podcast, I hope it would be to take a step back and not judge people. And the state of their homes is not it doesn't represent who they are as a person. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't make them any less worthy. And I think that's something that's just really important to say. But then again, I think I can only do so much, and I can only raise so much awareness, and people are going to say what they're going to say. But if there's anything you can take from this podcast, I hope that it would be to be a little bit kinder to one another and realize that there's more than what meets to the eye in many, many situations. You never really know what other people are going through, and so I think it's important to have patience. And unfortunately, I can't teach someone to have empathy, but think about it. Anyways, think about it. I'm tired of hearing everyone's bullshit about, how people can live a certain way or even not check up on a family member. The truth is, you don't know, and you would only know. Most people would only know unless they're in a situation like that themselves. So I encourage you to try to have empathy for others, and just try your best, because most people they just don't try at all. And yeah, I think that's all there really is to it. I guess I'll end this podcast by saying thank you for listening. I hope it was somewhat interesting. There's probably a lot of details that I left out, but we can't be perfect. But anyways, if you take anything away from this, I hope that it's to be kind and be more empathetic to your neighbors and your friends and your family. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next story. Bye.